Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Let's talk about books. Alright, so I have 6 books to talk about with you today, and then we are bringing back the Roll the Dice game. I will be rolling the dice for the next 5 books on my TBR. So let's get right into it. You know the drill. We go in the order of my enjoyment, starting with my least favorite book that I've finished recently, all the way up to my favorite book. So starting with the least favorite, which was a DNF. I only have one DNF this go around, and that is The Tiger and the Wolf by Adrian Tchaikovsky. No one is more surprised than me because I loved Guns of the Dawn by Adrian Tchaikovsky. That is one of my favorite fantasy books ever, and I was fully expecting to be on board with anything Adrian Tchaikovsky writes. Not the case. This one was a case of it's not for me. I did not find anything particularly engaging about this book, unfortunately. I didn't love the world building. This one is a fantasy book that follows shapeshifters, and we follow the wolf clan who can shapeshift into wolves. We get multi-perspective in this, and I did not care. Oh my gosh, I had the hardest time caring at all about any of the other perspectives. Every time we would switch to another perspective, my mind would wander. I would listen to birds chirping outside. I would listen to paint drying on the wall rather than engaging with this book. And it was such a bummer because I was fully expecting to love this. So yikes, just not my cup of tea. I can't really pinpoint the exact reason why. The writing style wasn't like bad, but it wasn't my favorite, and I just really didn't find the world interesting. So yeah, this was a DNF, and I'm very bummed about it. Then let's talk about a wild ride of a reading experience, and that is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Reid. This book, what is it? What is this book? What genre? I don't even know how to pitch this book to you. It is a psychological horror that follows a girl who is going to meet her boyfriend's parents for the first time, but she is thinking about ending things with the boyfriend. And that's all I'll say. It's probably best you know as little as possible going into this, considering how short it is. I listened to this one on audio and found that experience very enjoyable. I really liked the narrator. I found the writing style very engaging. A lot of inner monologue is going on throughout this story. So if you are not a fan of like very heavy monologuing from your characters like throughout the entire story, this may not be for you. I found it interesting, but I almost felt like at the end I was not smart enough to understand this book. I got to the end and had no idea what I had just read, and I had to go back and listen to the ending again. Still didn't understand it. Went online to watch people explain, because this was adapted into a movie, if you didn't know. Went online to watch people explain the ending to me. Finally got it. And it's one that, did I like it? I don't know. I feel like I didn't, for the most part. I enjoyed my experience going through it, but because I was so lost at the end and had no idea what was going on, I think that dropped my enjoyment down. I don't love like not having any idea what's going on. So I gave it 3 stars because now that I understand the ending, I could see it. Like now I get it. Now it all clicked. But what was that? I don't know. So give it a try if you like weird books. The next book I have is Electra by Jennifer Saint. This was one of my anticipated releases for the year, and it's one of my attempts to get more into Greek mythology and just mythology retellings in general. That is something I would like to read more of, and I'm glad I read this one. I gave it 4 stars. I really liked the writing style, and I'm very curious to read Ariadne by this author, and I really I don't know where I was during school when we were going over like this Greek history, but I was spacing out somewhere in the beyond because I don't remember anything of like this part of history. So for me, I was kind of going in not knowing anything. I found it fascinating, and I will say you're following 3 perspectives. One of them I loved, was like totally hooked. Another one I found myself asking a couple times, like, why are we following this character? I can understand for some things, but then for other things I was like, what are we doing here? And then the third one I hated. So for a book called Electra, you actually don't get a ton of her until like the second half of the story. And for a book called Electra, I was expecting to like Electra, and I hated Electra. Hated. And I don't know if it was something where I was supposed to hate Electra, because I think the author had a really hard task of making Electra sympathetic, and it did not work for me. I really didn't like her, but I loved another character in this book. So I enjoyed this, but I also find it's not an all-time favorite, because one of the perspectives I didn't really care about, and another one, like, I hated, and it's one of those situations where I love when you hate a character because they're fun to hate, like a Joffrey from Game of Thrones, like a Ramsay Bolton from Game of Thrones. Like, you know that you're supposed to hate those characters, and you just love to hate them. But I don't know if I was supposed to hate Electra as much as I did. So that's Electra. I definitely do recommend it, though, for any mythology retelling fans. It was a very engaging read throughout, and I'm glad I read it. The next book I finished was Blood Heir by Amelie Zhao, which I gave 4 stars. This was really, really good, and I have been wanting a young adult fantasy book to like bring me back around and hop me back onto the young adult train, because I have been striking out so often with young adult recently, but this one was great. It read a little bit more mature than I was expecting, and I saw Elle review this book recently as well, and she put it perfectly in one of her videos, where it feels like it's one step up in maturity from the Shadow and Bone trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. Like, if you like the Grishaverse, I think you're really gonna like this world as well. It feels very reminiscent of the Grishaverse, and a lot of the tropes that you find in this book, a lot of the like plot points, it kind of reminded me a lot of times of Shadow and Bone, which I really love that series. So I really enjoyed this one. I thought, you know, even though it felt familiar, there was enough in it that felt very fresh and new and unique. And you're tackling some pretty heavy themes. The author really doesn't hold back from showing how there are real consequences to war, and you definitely feel the stakes in this one. It's not that YA story where everyone's safe at the end. Like, you're definitely fearing for your characters, and the author's not afraid to go there in several instances, is all I'll say. So I thought that this was really, really good, and highly recommend checking it out if you're a YA fantasy fan. For some readers, I can see it reading slower than like a typical faster paced YA story. I did not find myself bored at any point. I didn't find it a slow read, but I also read a ton of adult fantasy, so I can see where if you're a YA reader who likes the fast-paced YA, this might read a little slow, but I really liked it because it just felt more mature. It felt more developed and darker. Even if you typically read adult fantasy, I think that you might really like this one. So highly recommend Blood Heir. I'll definitely be continuing on with the series. The next book I have was a 4.5 stars, and that is The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. This was gorgeous, stunning, loved it. Like, the writing style is so beautiful. I loved Brit Bennett's writing style. The book itself follows 2 sisters who grow up as white passing. They are themselves African American, and you follow these twins where one of them decides to live their life as a Black woman and one of them decides to live their life as a white woman. So you kind of follow those dual perspectives, but you also get some other perspectives that I was very pleasantly surprised by. I was not expecting to get a couple of other perspectives in this book, and I loved that they were included. I love themes of motherhood. I love themes of family dynamics and exploring how messy those can be, but how worthwhile they still are. And just it explored so many themes that I love, and heavier themes that are harder to tackle. It did so beautifully. The first half of this book, I will say, I wasn't quite as engaged. It took me a while to get oriented to all the different characters and perspectives and timelines. There's quite a few different time jumps that you have in this book. So it took me a while to kind of get oriented to it and really find myself fully engaged. But by, I would say, maybe a third of the way in, I was fully engaged. I was fully there. So that's why it's the 4.5 stars. It did take a while for me to settle in, but once I did, it was beautiful, magnificent. So loved this book, loved the themes it tackled, loved seeing all of these different perspectives. I don't want to say too much because I would like it to be a surprise for those of you who do pick it up, just like it was for me. I was so pleasantly surprised getting the perspectives that we did. So love this one, highly recommend checking this one out, and whatever else Brit Bennett writes, I will read. And finally, my 5-star book of this wrap up. I'm so happy to report that I gave 5 stars to Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. This one, I had heard so many good things about. So I was going in with pretty high expectations because I had only seen really glowing reviews. And I gotta say, I get it. Like, I think that this one deserves all the hype. First of all, Amari as a character, she's fantastic. So much fun to follow. I loved her as a main character. I think she balanced like being vulnerable with being brave so beautifully, like showing the strength and vulnerability while also like showing the strength and the persistence and the courage that she had to display. And then I also loved like the themes. I thought it did a really good job of balancing the fun whimsy of this middle grade fantasy story with some of the heavier themes as well that I just thought was really well done. And I love the actual world. It's so much fun. You follow Amari, who very early on in the story you realize her brother is missing, and she is determined to find out what happened to her brother and gets caught up in this supernatural world in that search for him. And it is so much fun. I did find the ending a little bit predictable, but I also feel like if I was the target audience, I don't think I would have predicted the end. So I'm kind of trying to put myself in the head of my like 10-year-old self. I don't think I would have gotten there with the twist at the end. And the other thing I was worried about was you never get to see kind of Amari and her brother interact before he goes missing. But even not getting to see that, you still felt the strength of their bond so much throughout the story. And I thought that that was really well done, because very often, if you don't get to see it develop yourself and you rely kind of on these, you know, stories that the character's telling, reflecting back, sometimes you don't feel it like as much, but I really did. The author did such a fantastic job of developing every character. I loved the friendships in this book. Amari herself was fantastic. So definitely excited to continue on with this series. This is like a perfect middle grade book in my mind. I'm so happy I loved it. So if you are a middle grade reader, please go check out Amari and the Night Brothers. That is this recent Reads wrap up. Now let's go roll the dice to see what 5 books will be next on my TBR. I do have one that I've already started that I'm not counting. It is Rise of Empire by Michael J. Sullivan. I am going to finish that. For the roll the dice game, on the whiteboard will have all of the different arcs and books that have been sent to me for review that I really need to get to. So I'm gonna let the board decide for me which ones to prioritize, because it was really hard for me to choose for myself. So let's see what the dice decide are going to be my next reads. first, let's talk about Lachlan's, which, not gonna lie, if I hadn't rolled this, I might have just added it to my TBR anyway because I'm so excited to get to it. So this is the third and final book in the Founders trilogy. You all know I love Foundryside and Shorefall so much, so I'm so excited. So nervous, but so excited, crossing my fingers for such a good ending to this fantastic trilogy. I also rolled for The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah, which is now out, and I'm super excited to get to this one. I've heard some really good things so far. So far I've been hearing that it's really fun and action-packed, and it's more of like this adventure fantasy that sounds like it's just gonna be a good time. So really looking forward to getting to it. I also have The Last Blade Priest by W.P. Wiles. This one comes out on July 12th. So next month, get ready for it. It says 3 between the old and the new, 3 below the mountain, the priest, the builder, the child. I'm excited. I think that this is a standalone, and I think that it's going to be this really cool political fantasy, so looking forward to it. I also rolled for August Kiko and the Mechas from Space by Alex White, which sounds like such a fun time. I love that I'm going to be reading these fun adventure books during the summertime. Just sounds lovely. This one is about like AI robots invading, and it sounds like there's some musician who has to save the world. I'm so there. I hope I love this. And finally, the first book in the series that I was determined to start this year, Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm finally going to be reading it. I've had this on my TBR for so long. I've heard so many things about Robin Hobb. Do I even need to explain what this is about? To be honest, I don't really know what it's about, except that it's very sad and it follows Fitz. And he's coming of age and he goes through a lot of sad stuff. And it's sad. So I'm just gonna get my tissue box ready, and I'm glad I have some other fun reads in this pile, because this one's gonna, I guess, tear my heart out of my body. So I am prepared for it. So that is my TBR for the next recent reads wrap up. Did you see any books that you've read before? What did you think of them? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye.